Okay, everybody, good afternoon. I am Sukanya Singh and I'm the corporate lead at ProEves. We are here today to discuss with our experts on how to facilitate meaningful online experiences for our students and communities. We all know that with the outbreak of coronavirus, many of us have been asked rapidly to move into an online space. And while for some of us, the experience and the transition has been smooth, a lot of us are still scrambling. And the intent for today's webinar is primarily to help you all understand what is it that we need to do to kind of, to transition smoothly in the online space, because, as we all know now, digitization is really the new normal. And it's not something that is good to have, but it's become a must to have. So we have our experts today, our panelists, who interestingly come from varied backgrounds, but all of them have actually very successfully been able to, transition in the online space, move their businesses into the online space, and have had great success in the past 1 month. I'm going to introduce our panelists one by one. We have with us today Jagna Mahajan. Welcome, Jagna.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Sukanya.
Hi. So Jagna is the center head for the Malad Center of Kangaroo Kids in Mumbai. She's got a rich experience of 20 years in the hospitality, ITS, and education sector. And she's been with Kangaroo Kids since 2012 and is currently heading the preschool department. Welcome, Jagna. Thank you for taking time out for us.
My pleasure.
We also have with us Tarannum Chok, who's the co-founder at Creative Connect, which is a production house that specializes in making web-based videos for corporates. She does illustrations and storyboardings, and Tarannum is also a passionate doodler and has been taking a lot of art and classes for children and adults. And that's been keeping her busy ever since the lockdown. So we thought it is a great opportunity to have her join us as well today and, share with us what her success factors have been. So thank you, Tarannum.
For such a warm welcome, Sukanya.
Also, I have with me joining Gitanjali Kaul, who's an educator for 23 years. She's a passionate storyteller, she's a creative coach, she's a play director, she's a parent coach, and she's a facilitator. She's the founder of Secret Passages, and she has nurtured over 400 storytellers across India. Gitanjali, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Sukanya, for inviting.
Then we also have Urvija joining us, Urvija Gure. She's the founder of Rasa Raga Dance Institute in Mumbai. She's a Bharatnatyam Vishard and teaches various dance forms at her school. Prior to opening her school, Urvija is actually a lawyer by education, and she's had a sizable corporate work experience with legal and consulting firms. Urvija, thank you. Thank you for taking time out for us today.
Thank you so much, Sukanya. Pleasure being here.
And then finally, we have my colleague Disha Agarwal, who's the product lead at ProEves. As she manages, she's the product lead for our ProEves Edge app, which basically has all online lessons and activities for parents. She helps with app development, marketing, and these days she's been helping the daycare community go online, and she's been helping them set their curriculum and content, and helping them manage the transition to an online space. So thank you, Disha, for taking the time out and doing this for us.
Thank you. Thanks, Sukanya, for having me.
Okay, once again, like I said, thank you everyone for coming together to share your experience and learnings from the lockdown. I'm going to start with Jagna. Jagna, Kangaroo Kids has been one of the first brands to start virtual preschooling. I wanted you to share with us how the journey has been so far and what were some of the challenges that you faced early on.
So the journey has been great so far. As soon as we realized that the lockdown was going to get extended, we started the planning of our virtual classes. So we wanted to ensure there's a continuity of learning for our children. At the same time, we wanted to ensure that we are there with them for the emotional security as well. And the emotional bond that the teacher and the child shares is what forms the crux of our Kangaroo Kids curriculum. What we had is, right from our teams, from principal, vice principal, central office, tech team, ensure that, the online classes process is started. And without their support, I don't think we could have been able to start the entire process. We also had a brainstorming sessions with our teams to see what is that would cater to the tiny tots and how we can make our sessions interesting. So the shift from the physical classroom to the virtual classroom was quite challenging because the typical lesson plan in Kangaroo Kids is quite interactive, it's stimulating, and we use a lot of teaching aids in our classroom. Yeah, our curriculum is also integrated and interdisciplinary, so we had to ensure that we have a balance of a concept-based and activity-based sessions that are done during the entire class. So what we did several hours of training with our teachers to ensure they're able to navigate their screen, share their screen, at the same time are also able to use the different teaching aids which are designed in our curriculum to cater the different learning needs of the children. What we also did is a school team came up with an innovative idea of how we can use this teaching aids in an innovative way. So we had our school team and teachers, they made different puppets and teaching aids right from hand towels to silver foil to paper plates and paper cups. The teachers are also using materials back at home like a dough or a play dough to make the children understand the concept of letter formations in Hindi. One of our teachers also dressed up as a paleontologist to explain them the entire concept of how fossils can be found. And again, these fossils were made from the atta that you find ready-made in your houses.
Yeah.
Teachers are also making interesting and interactive presentation so the children are able to connect and are able to engage in the session. Now, our entire aim of Kangaroo Kids is to focus on the overall development and holistic development of the child and not just academics. We have a lot of fun activities like yoga, music and movement that we keep adding in our daily plans to ensure that the child is feeling much relaxed. There's no pressure of academics. The learning happens in a fun-filled way. And at the same time, the teachers are looking forward to having the children every day on board. And that's how the connections are forming at this point of time.
So good. That's great to hear that it's been a smooth transition. And I think with such small children, they need routine. And to just be able to see their teachers and their friends on Zoom, I'm sure it has been a very enriching experience for them. They must be surprised and shocked because the little ones, I'm sure, do not really understand what's happening, but just the fact that they can, have that routine and have that continuity, I'm sure has been.
Yeah, the entire idea of this, seeing that teachers and the friends on a daily basis, even if it's for a shorter period of time, I think that's what excites them at this point of time in the current lockdown situation.
That's super. That's super. Taranum, what about you? How has it impacted your business, the lockdown, and how easy has been it for you to kind of transition to the online space, both your business and I know also you're very passionate about art and craft and doodling. So I believe that you've been taking a lot of classes for adults and children. And so
Yes.
how has it been for you?
So business, our business always has been about you making content for YouTube channels and things like that. But currently, business was on a standstill for some time. And that sort of gave us an opportunity to reinvent ourselves. And today, the model has completely shifted. So we've changed our business model. And now we are into remote videos for our clients, where they shoot the videos and we edit it for them.
Oh, wow.
Or or go in for animation. So they have an option to go in for both.
Okay.
Apart from that, my art and craft classes have changed online, which is a huge change because in real life, when you're seeing, the eye contact is a very important contact you have as a teacher.
Right.
It gives you a heads up if the child has understood what you're trying to say or not.
Right.
Here, after a lot of hits and misses, I've figured out a little mix of how I can deal with my children, and that is exactly, you have to figure out how you can manage with your children and what is your rapport with your children. Correct. So first thing here, the major change is you need to have visual clues, visual cues all the way, right? So if you have to ask at every step, did you understand what I was saying? Thumbs up. Do you want me to repeat the step? Instead of the child saying anything, you have to ask them to do thumbs up or thumbs down. right? And essentially repeat a step again and again, for which I always use a video instead of doing everything myself side by
Right.
side. My focus has to be to make sure all the kids get it, which
Right.
is why I pre-record my visuals. Otherwise, I will be trying to figuring out how should I finish my product instead of teaching the kid and making sure all the kids are at the same level.
Right. Absolutely.
So those are a few
So,
things.
so visual aids and videos are really working
They are an
well for you.
essential. Plus, I would suggest everybody to play to their strengths. So, for example, if a teacher is better with puppets, record a video with using puppets and be on the side to actually see what the kid, how is the reaction going.
Right.
And make sure your videos are a little slow and not too fast if you're catering to a larger group.
Right. Absolutely. Gitanjali, over to you. Will you share with us, humans are storytellers from when they're born. You hear small children making stories from as early as when they can actually speak. But, parents tell stories to children. But what is it that really makes stories extraordinary? If you can share some insights on that, and how for you, you were able to kind of bring that on in the online platform. Please share some insights and, just.
Yeah, I have also been a lot of offline person. For me, personal touch was the most important ingredient of my workshops. So I do a lot of group activities, group participations, and we play a lot of rhythmic games. And so all this was like kind of biggest glitch when I thought of moving to online. But to my surprise, I started getting inquiries from Chennai, from Bangalore, from different places to run my storytelling course.
Okay.
So when life throws lemons at you, you make a lemonade out of it. So I just decided to experiment, and I launched my first online program at a reduced price. To my surprise, I had waiting list. And when the
That's
workshop
super.
began, so I have meditation as a primary factor in my program. So
Okay.
I was shocked to see that everyone could visualize for 15 minutes.
And when you say these workshops, are you doing these workshops for adults as well as small children and children across different age groups, or
Yes.
what's
So
the target audience?
my first launch was adult. So first launch was adult programs. I was surprised to see a lot of counselors, psychologists from different parts of the country working on doing. So the first was successful. I got testimonials like crazy. People spoke on social media that they attended this program. Then the second one came, and now third, I have inquiries from Melbourne, Australia, from different parts of the globe. So I think it's just like the beginning, and then it takes you through, and a lot of experiments took place. I did programs for children as well, along with proofs. We did a lot of programs now, storytelling workshop. What I discovered is, the voice plays a very important role. Why? Because communication comes through voice. So while you're using your voice, you have to modulate. So you say the train went, so the children will automatically start attending. The river water was flowing. The stream went trickling. And the wind whistled. And the little girl played with her ball. My ball, my ball. So hard. And then you can throw the ball to the children, and so a lot of interaction and participation can happen. So voice was the most important part. Apart from that, I also felt rhythm. That means if you are into online storytelling every day, you could set in a rhythm where you say that let's sit on the aeroplane and fly high up in the sky and land on the story land. So every time, because children like to travel from known to unknown. So when you keep bringing rhythm, they start setting into your system, whatever you want to bring. And yeah, like Taranum said, like find out what's your strength.
Right.
And work on it, because, because this is a time when you become indigenous, you pick up whatever you had, like as also others mentioned, whatever you have, you pick up and you make something out of it. That's creativity.
Right, absolutely.
I had a story telling about how the rabbit's heart kept beating. The bird Tweety's heart kept beating. So I had a heartbeat there. So it's a tuck, 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 tuck.
And what's your advice in terms of visual aids? Like Taranum was saying that in art and craft, it's a very important and an integral part, especially for her, and it kind of works well because she's not really focusing on completing that activity herself, but is focusing on teaching the children while they're actually looking at the steps. So in storytelling, what's your take on using? You talked about voice modulation, but what about visual aids?
So I'm a body storyteller. So I'm somebody who would say that open the window slowly, look out. So for me, fingers play a very important role.
Okay.
But also, if you're bringing one puppet, I personally believe in less is more.
Okay.
So do not keep bringing 10 puppets because that's distracting. So you bring one puppet and say, oh God, my head is paining.
Right.
I didn't sleep well.
Right.
And you could say the puppet is talking to you. So make this one puppet as the most important protagonist of your story. So don't keep bringing 10 puppets because then the children are gone. So focus on less is more.
Yeah, and I think what also will happen with children in early childhood and toddlers is that their focus then will be probably looking at the props rather than really trying to listen and be attentive around the story.
Also, music plays a very important role. So one is you have a surprise music which they can't see.
Right.
You play a music, they wonder from where is it coming. So you say the squirrel scampered and look for the nuts. So they don't know where is it coming from. One you can show an instrument which they can see.
Right.
You have this instrument which say nobody comes here anymore. So the musical instrument can keep playing different emotional feelings, and children can also connect with those. Like he was very happy. So he was happy, very happy.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I have we did this. So we did this one workshop with Gitanjali, and she had narrated a story in which she used this song. And till date, my children, when they want to sing something, this is the first thing now they've started singing when they're happy. So I think you're right. Music, puppets, visual aids, body language, voice modulation, all of those things really work in storytelling. Urvija, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Roles, like for example, when we have a story narration between two characters, so you do an old woman, okay, and then you do a young girl who's combing her hair. Right. So use a lot of yourself because then children can retell, recall, retell, and it becomes a good role play. Thank you so much, Sukanya.
Yeah. Urvija, what about you? You run a dance school in Mumbai. How's the transition been for you, and how difficult has it been a move to an online space? Or is it that you were also doing, like Taranu mentioned, they were already doing some videos and posting on in YouTube? Was it a space that you had also explored earlier than the lockdown, or is it something new for you?
So to be honest, no, we were not online per se. We have in Rastraga, we have a huge variety in terms of the dance styles, in terms of the age range. So my youngest student is 3 years old and my eldest student is 65 plus. So we found it extremely challenging to shift online, to move the business online per se after the lockdown. So we did not move it online. We did not move our business online. We remodeled it completely to set an online platform. Because I think as service providers, one of the things that we need to understand is that the look and feel or the experience of your class is a product in itself. Right. When you're going online, you are completely shifting your product. So the way the people, your students access it also changes. So that is why, keeping that in mind, we did things like we cleared up a space in our houses. My entire team has done this so that there is a dedicated space for dance. There is no distraction per se, because if there were 4 posters over here, all my students would be squinting their eyes to see what is on those posters.
That's true.
So, that we have to also look at the, like I said, the range of students. So one thing is to see who's comfortable with using apps, etc. And second thing is to see who really has access to those apps on internet. So I have some students who come from a strata of society who do not have access to internet also. in the
Right.
sense that they cannot, take their parents' phone and sit on Zoom, for instance. So for them, we've done a separate kind of class where we do everything on video. So we teach them one by one on video and send out the video to them. And as a homework, they do it and send it back.
Oh, wow.
In some
Okay.
cases, I have parents telling me that I cannot give my child Zoom access right now because I have an office call and I
Right.
need the bandwidth for my office call. So
Right.
again, that comes into play, where you
Right,
send them a
absolutely.
video. You basically reduce their dependency on the internet or internet at that time, so that
Right.
they can still continue to be a part of the class and not feel left out.
Right.
Apart
Absolutely.
from that, I also think we should stop looking at it as our regular classes that are moved from a regular platform to an online platform. We should think of it as a completely different class,
Right.
right? So in that sense, our choreographies have changed, our pricing has changed, the way we conduct the class has changed, and so on and so forth. So it is not really just, jo Bharatnatyam class hum kar rahe the, the same thing we are doing online. Because
Right.
there are some very unique problems. Like in Bharatnatyam, you're supposed to stamp your feet very
Mhm.
loudly.
Right.
Now in class, that's absolutely fine. But when they are at home, all my children are concerned about the people staying under them.
Yeah.
It's a very unique problem, but this is what I faced. One last thing that I want to say is, especially for those of you who are conducting classes for kids, kids as young as 3 years old are extremely sophisticated, extremely app friendly. They know how the internet works, they know how the icons work, they know the jargon brilliantly. So don't worry about whether they will be able to manage the app or not. I think you will be at the lower end when it comes to that. But of course, think about the social strata, think about availability, think about dependency, think about
Right.
all of those things. But you definitely don't have to think about how tech savvy your students will be, especially if they are kids.
Clearly, children today are much more tech savvy. I mean, I have my daughter telling me some things around, and not just what not just her games and her iPad and stuff that she does on it, but literally on Zoom, she's coming and teaching me this is how you need to do it, because they've been having Zoom classes online. So they are very quick in picking technology up.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, over to you, Disha. Disha, you've been working very closely with a lot of daycares, right? What is it that you are hearing from them? What are some of the challenges they are facing? What's their readiness? What's their go-to strategy given the lockdown and the current situation?
So, in the current situation, as everyone has given their examples and shown once again how important online lessons are, one by one, all the daycares and preschools are understanding the importance of it and are switching to online lesson plans. Like Urvija said, you have to think of it as a completely new curriculum and build accordingly. So we did a survey. First thing the lockdown started, we did a survey across 300 preschools and over 1,000 parents. And we realized everyone had the same feedback that they are going to start working on online lesson plans, especially because 60% parents have said that they don't know when they would like to send their child back to the preschool or daycare. And almost 40% said that, we would rather take help from an extended family member than send the child back to a public
Absolutely.
play or daycare preschool where they have the chance of falling sick again. So because of that, centers are moving one by one towards online lessons, and they are, as educators, it is the priority. The child's education is the priority. So you have to redesign the entire curriculum, entire learning experience for the children to make sure their overall development doesn't get hindered.
Right.
The benefit of online classes, if done correctly, is that you can actually follow the same structure which you are providing at the center. If you do it right, the child can actually do the same things they were doing at school. They can do the same thing at home every day. You just have to structure it and make the necessary changes. Like everyone else is, like Urvija again said, that children are very adaptable. I think that children have adapted to this lockdown better than we have.
Yeah, you bet.
Their activities and evolved so well. They're so creative at finding things to do at home. So we
Yeah.
as Educators can definitely do the same and give them the correct tools.
Right. Absolutely. So Jagna, would you like to kind of elaborate on what kind of changes you had to make in the curriculum and the content? You know, Disha said that it's really about re-strategizing and rethinking and you know, and while the overall curriculum can remain the same, but I'm sure, you know, in online space you had to kind of reinvent the wheel. So what are some of the changes that you at Kangaroo Kids have brought on? And you know, in terms of child ratio, you know, teacher child ratio, the length of the class, if you could talk about that in detail, it'll help.
Sure. So as Tarannum, Gitanjali and Uruja mentioned, all our children, parents and teachers have embraced the virtual classes really, really well. You know, we are going really smooth. Also, what we are doing is, as Gitanjali mentioned, music and movement, storytelling, those are part of our classes on an ongoing basis. So the children at one point of time, they're taking the learning from it, but they're also, you know, doing it in a fun way and the concept-based learning. So a teacher would have a shadow play where she would, you know, enact a little shadow play with the help of voice modulation. We would have a music and movement class where the kids are jumping to the beats and, you know, following teacher's instruction. We would have a yoga classes in between. So all this little bit are kept in mind to ensure that, you know, child are just not doing the academics for the sake of it glued to the screen time. But at the same time, they're taking a little bit of learning. So if teacher is doing a concept season, she's going to be using an interactive presentation where there's a spinning wheel. And when the spinning wheel stops, you know, she would ask the child a question, oh, could you tell me which season is this? And, you know, what is that you would do? So question and, you know, the interaction is based on question specific activities which are conducted in the class. Again, we don't have to look at our virtual class as a purely academic purpose. We need to ensure that all of us are in a lockdown phase. Emotional and safety security is something that we would want to do for our children. That emotional connect, that, you know, we are there for you, is something which is on the higher point for us at this point of time.
Right.
Academics is something that children will learn over the years. But as long as the child feels that, you know, he's emotionally connected to the teacher and an adult, somebody is there for him to hold his hand to move forward. I think this is something we look at Kangaroo Kids to ensure that, you know, the entire learning happens for the children.
And tell me, in terms of the classes per se, you know, how often do you do it? What's the duration? And what kind of classes are you doing? So are you doing a little bit of art and craft, a little bit of yoga, a little bit of dance every day? I mean, how are you structuring the program?
So I forgot to mention the previous question that you asked, that what is the teacher-child ratio?
Right.
So a class would range anything from 15 to 25 kids, depending on how many kids are there in each class. Again, the activity would be either a 30-minute or a 45-minute activity in case the child is between 1.8 to 3 years old.
Okay.
That is a play school and a nursery age group. And in case the child is between a junior KG and a senior KG, which is 4 or 5 years old, then the activity would range from 1 hour to 1 hour 20 minutes.
And this is a continuous class. So when you say 45 minutes and...
Yeah, it's a continuous class for entire 45 minutes or entire 1 hour 15 minutes. However, we have divided into specific activities. So the entire session is for 40 minutes or half an hour. And the entire there would be an activity only for 10 minutes and 15 minutes. Okay. So a teacher would do, you know, a rhyme session or a story session, a music and moment session, a cooking activity, an art activity. These are for the younger babies, like a 1.8 to 3 years old, which
right.
is catering to play school nursery.
Right.
When it comes to junior and senior KG, we go one level above. We teach them introduction of basic concept. We do the introduction of letters, introduction of numerals. So, you know, there is a little bit of learning as well, which is happening. Again, as I mentioned, between two activities. For example, I have done a conversation time right now. As soon as the conversation time would get over, there would be either a music and moment, a little bit of yoga, a little bit of stretching exercise. So the child, you know, there's some kind of movement that is there of the child. He's not completely glued to the screen for the entire 30 minutes. Again, when the teacher would move to a next concept. So art is finished and again, they have to move back to a concept time. You know, teacher would just break out into a jig, tell the kids, okay, let's do the breathing exercise. Let's settle down, have a sip of water, and then move on to the next activity. So I understand, you know, the activities would be there for 30 minutes or 1 hour. However, there is an interval which is given in between for the child to relax and, you know, move on to the next activity.
Okay. What about parents' involvement? You know, because at this age, when they go to a school, then obviously, you know, parents are, you know, I mean, either at home or busy working. But at home, what what has been, what do you see? Do you still see children, and such small children, being independent, or is it that you require, for parents to be involved, and especially for these kind of classes?
So we at Kangaroo Kid consider our parents as the equal partners for the overall development of the child. So you know what? They have helped and supported us thoroughly in the entire time of virtual classroom. Even they've helped us for the delivery of our curriculum, wherein we've taken our classroom right to their drawing rooms. They've understood the teaching methodology that the Kangaroo Kids, as a school that we're imparting to the children. So they would sit next to the child. They would help the child to mute and unmute. They would help the child to switch from one screen to another screen. So our parents have been quite supportive, and we blessed on that parameter.
And I guess, what helps is the fact that you have short classes. So it's not, parents really are struggling, with work from home, with no help at home. But I guess just the fact that the format of the classes is short and it's for 30-45 minutes, they can pre-plan their day and, make themselves available during that time for the kids.
Exactly, Sukanya. So what we do is on the following Friday. So on today, for example, I will upload the entire week's curriculum for the coming week. So the parent is well prepared. Okay, I need to sit with my child for the classes from 8 to 8:30 or 10 to 11. So they are quite free and they adjust their timetable according to that. And as I mentioned to you, the kids are so excited to sit for these classes. In fact, our parents are enjoying our classes equally along with the children.
Okay, so you mentioned that you do it on the weekend, but do you also, for example, share activities that need to be done a day in advance, or is it something that the teachers kind of do while they are on doing the classes?
No. So what we do is we do an internal planning which happens already a week or two in advance. And as I mentioned to you, a timetable is sent across to the parent. So for example, Monday we're going to do a story time and a dress-up day, or the child needs to have a red item with them, or the child needs to sit with them, the Play-Doh next to them. The parent is well prepared before the classroom starts that these are the activity that has to be kept next to the child. So then, the entire continuity of the classroom happens at the same time. There's no breaks in between. So if the teacher has mentioned for the entire week that Monday you need to have red item, Tuesday you need to keep Rajma beads with you, Wednesday you need to have, a red item again. The child needs to dress up in a red clothes. Wednesday you need to have this. So the parent has the entire week agenda with them. Again, if there's any cooking activity which is rostered for the week, it's already mentioned in the timetable that you need to sit with 2 slices of bread, either a cheese or a jam. So whatever, we're trying to, accommodate whatever activities with whatever material is available at source. We don't want the parents to be running around last minute for any activity.
So a lot of pre-planning basically needs to go into it.
A lot of pre-planning takes in place. So on an average, if it's a regular physical classroom, it takes around an hour or so or hour or two to plan it. Vice versa, if it's an online classes, it takes almost double the time, 3 to 4 hours. First to check, is this activity going to get completed within 10 minutes or not? Again, when you do the next activity, will this item be available with the parents or not?
Right.
So again, if you have to make any teaching aid, will this item be available with the teachers or not? So, the entire process of planning one virtual class is almost double than what you would do for the physical class.
Right. Okay. Tarannum, even in art and craft kind of a class, you need to kind of have the materials ready in place early on, and given the lockdown, I'm sure a lot of parents have been feeling finding it difficult to kind of go get the material. So, have you faced that challenge, and what do you do around it, and how do you kind of then manage?
So because the limited supplies is something I don't have because I used to take classes.
Right.
But every time I have to prepare a session, I have to make sure that I have a substitute ready for that item. So for example, if I am teaching origami, I would ask kids to work with newspaper in case they don't have the origami paper. So I'll teach them, before I start, I teach them how to cut it into a square sheet themselves. So, or for example, I'll teach them how to make Play-Doh. I'll send a Play-Doh recipe.
Right.
Or ask them to use alternative for colors. For example, use haldi, food colors, kumkum, and so on and so forth.
Right.
Essentially, I have to pre-plan for alternatives, and I have to make sure whatever session I take, it it is easily available materials. For example, packaging materials, which I know all the parents are saving for more than a week or two to make sure that something for the kids to do and come up with.
Right.
So essentially plan according to whatever you can assume that the kid would have.
So you basically need to be very resourceful. You know, you have to think out of the box
Yes.
to make it work. But
And
tell
obviously-
me, but
and obviously it helps to have good looking papers yourself, because then that will really help the children uh, get their attention onto you.
right, absolutely. But tell me, you know, when you take these classes, I'm sure, you know, the class can have a dozen or 100. I mean, one is that when you're doing more smaller groups and one-to-one classes, that's a different thing. But sometimes, you know, you also take, classes or live sessions where you have literally like hundreds of people joining in a situation like that. How do you kind of, you know, manage because each person's skill level is different, right? So how do you kind of manage to keep the engagement levels high?
So essentially in a larger section, the beauty of it is that there is no one-to-one interaction, but you have to make sure that everybody is on track with it. So I go very, very, very slow. And I keep asking them in the middle of the session if they've caught up or not. The second thing is, for example, I teach them alternate ways or methods to do a same thing. So in case I have a toddler working on origami, I will have to teach him a different way of doing a complex fold. And I will teach them an easier way. While if I'm dealing with a kid who can manage a difficult fold, I'll do accordingly. So I'll teach both the methods in one class, and the kid can have a choice of whichever method he wants to use. Also, I suggest not to start doing and practicing things during a live class when you're handling such a large group. Live classes are very difficult to manage if you're doing things parallelly. So you will be stuck between should I finish and demonstrate how to do, or see what the kids have done, or where are they. So you have to go by the let's say ratio. If 60% have done this, then it's time to move on. And also keep telling them that, okay, if you've not finished it, you can finish it off later after the session.
Okay.
Some part of it, based on if you're
Okay.
doing painting, you can ask them to fill half part of it later.
Okay.
Also, all these sessions, Sukanya, few things that we need to keep prepared ourselves is you have to first, सबसे important, the most important thing is you need to, before you go in thinking that you're going to do a session, online session, live session, you need to practice. You need to make the whole you need to prepare a presentation or come up with how you're going to present. Record your videos, send it to people around you, your friends and families for feedback, because that is where you will actually know how you're going to go ahead and how good you can become at it. If you're doing anything wrong, you'll get a feedback. So you have to first practice and make sure before teaching or going online with your first class, you have done your practice sessions and shared it with your family and friends for feedback. The second thing, I think, which is very important, you need to make your visuals very beautiful. So the prettier your visuals are, the more happy and merry, the kids will be actually looking at you only because you have a prettier picture on your screen. So you have to maybe work a little on that end.
Okay.
And
yeah, go ahead.
No, please.
Okay. So Gitanjali, over to you. Now, what is your advice in terms of structuring the story sessions? How long they should be for early childhood, students, and how long they should be for, children who are older? Like, what kind of variations and nuances should we really, plan for when we are doing story sessions? You're on mute, Gitanjali. You're on mute.
So yeah, ideally the attention span for children under the age group of 4 is not more than 4 to 5 minutes for a story per se. So you need to bring in a lot of rhythm and movement exercises, like I said, like you sit on a magic carpet, you fly to a story land. So you bring a rhythm, like maybe, something like we fly to a story land and see the aeroplane is coming, put your head down, and then all the children put their head down. So you make it very participatory. Birds are flying, move around, and then the birds will go. So you bring in like 5 to 6 of preamble to your story. And then you start digging your story, and then you say, oh, let us dust it. Which story is this? And you bring some 1-2 ideas. Oh, it's about that birdie. Oh, the birdie was crying in the story. So then the children start gathering and they want to know more of the story.
Right.
And then you start the story. So the story could be of a woman who was pulling, the bucket in the village well. Oh, she pulled and it was hard. Oh, to her surprise, there was something else, and you put it out. So, bring voice, high, low. A lot of hold towards the vowels, when you're telling your story. So, hope. So it's oh, hope. Red, it's Red Riding Hood. So you say, Little Red Riding Hood. So it
Right.
becomes very calming for children to begin the story. And then you settle down, finish the story, and aha experience happens in the story. And then we say, okay, now let's go back to our own homeland. So we once again sit on the magic carpet and we come back. So a good 15 minutes for under 5. Over 5, I personally like telling stories and then doing some follow-up, kind of a storyboarding, picture 1, picture 2, picture 3.
Okay.
So we also do, I personally prefer live telling, even with adults and children. I'm a very old school teacher. So, I feel like showing while telling. Even in my storytelling, there's a lot of showing and no telling. So
Right.
over here also we do, the entire picture and the story is coming along with the children. So I ask, what do you think was the name of the owner of this jug? Okay, it could be this. He looked like this. I probably have the story on my mind, but I will pretend as though the story is coming from them.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
that brings a lot of interaction and engagement. As I mentioned, music plays a very vital role.
Okay.
A story and a song plays a very vital role in your life. So you go back singing, humming, and, telling the stories to everyone.
So your advice is basically to kind of for small children to keep the story session maybe for like 15 minutes and then have music and dance and kind of, have it as a longer session rather than keeping it into a monotone kind of a long session for them. Because I guess, their attention spans are very
Yeah,
small.
the attention span is short.
Okay, okay. And what is it that we should not do? So when it comes to storytelling, what is your advising, or what are some of the points that
Do not keep.
we should
dragging-
definitely?
Yeah. First of all, repertoire plays a very important role when you're telling a story. So, little pig, let me come in. No, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. So when you keep repeating, so a lot of stories which have repertoire happen to be like a kick, children automatically sit. But if you don't have a repertoire in your story, then it's a flat story.
Okay.
So avoid stories that don't bring repertoire. So you're just dragging something which has lost its attention span. So have a very good story structure. Something has to be lost and something has to be found. And the finding has to be mysterious, suspense. So like, the ruby is lost and the fish was bought and then it was cut and suddenly the ruby stone was found. So children say, so they don't know, like such kind of a mystery can happen. So yeah, a lot of facts also play a lot of bringing in facts and data. Children are interested, like Sunday morning at 5 o'clock, the bell rang, ting tong. So children
Right,
are
right.
more interested. So bring in good data to your storytelling.
Okay.
Avoid screaming when you're telling your story. Do not just scream. Like, for example, Little Red Riding Hood, don't call out like this, Little Red Riding Hood! The kids will also get a headache and your throat will also go on a good toss. So be calmer and, have rhythm to your telling. Start your story on a slow pace, but finish it on a faster pace.
Okay.
Don't continue the story on the same tone. Again, the kids will be gone.
Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. Those are some great insights. Urvija, in the dance space, what do you think works well for small children, and what is it that parents at home and even educators and dance teachers, what are some of the things they should keep in mind while they're teaching any sort of dance form to children?
Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to pick up from what I have learned over these last few weeks. One is I feel Zoom as the app comes closest to a classroom. I'm sure you can explore other apps as well. But Zoom gives a very classroomy feeling in the sense that everybody can see each other. I can see everyone.
Right.
So even if I have a class of say 300 students together,
Mhm.
I keep swiping to see how they're doing. And
Right.
if I kind of call out somebody saying, this person is doing it very well, everybody feels more involved.
Right.
Because one of the main things that happens on an online platform is you are away. You're not in the same physical space. So you
Right.
might even feel like there's no connect. The
Correct.
same teacher who would sit in front of me and maybe, hold my finger to show me a mudra is now sitting somewhere else. And it's like a TV. So if you acknowledge them, if you call out something, they feel more involved, they feel much closer to you. This is my
Right.
personal experience. Another thing, like a lot of others are also saying, especially Gitanjali mentioned right now, the duration of the class is very important. Our regular classes are 1 hour, 1.5 hours, but when we're taking it on Zoom, we reduce it to 30 minutes or 40 minutes or 45 minutes max, because it's difficult to keep children's attention, continuously.
Right.
And for it to be productive for them, it makes sense to keep it smaller. Another thing that Jagna said, that you stop for water or you stop for a quick break. When I'm in class physically, I can see my students tiring out and I can take a break. Here,
Right.
since I don't have that, I have to keep reminding myself that, okay, now we need to take a break. Everybody
Right.
compulsorily drink water in front of me so that I can see you. It's very tiny thing, but I think it adds to, especially a dance class or a class that has physical activity, like, a yoga or something like that. This definitely helps.
But tell me, how have the kids taken to these kind of classes? Are they really, is it more fun and play for them and screen time for them? Because every child wants screen time. So, while we've transitioned online and, this is the new normal, is it that they are being able to kind of really follow the dance you're teaching them? Are they serious about as serious as they were in, an offline kind of a class? Or is it just more fun and joy for them and like, go out there and enjoy, they come out there and enjoy, which also is an integral part, I'm sure. But what has your experience been?
See, when we're talking about younger kids, even in class, it is more of fun and joy.
Yeah.
I mean, the learning is like a byproduct because
Right.
they're actually enjoying themselves, dancing around. And now in the
Absolutely.
lockdown situation, I think because they cannot go outside, because they cannot meet their friends, this is a very good time for them to kind of, get out
Socially
that
connect.
physical energy also. Yes, and so what we do is I start my class 10 minutes before the actual class starts, so that
Okay.
all the kids can come online and talk to each other.
Okay.
So they just chat with each other. How's school going? How's this teacher and all of that. Very young kids will also chat. So it gives them some time to unwind. It gives them some time to kind of get into the process of sorts. So I
Right.
think that helps. One thing that I definitely want to say is that, like I said, the social strata or where your students come from is very important. I know I have students I know who are a little skeptical about coming online because they don't want everybody to see their house or their background and so on and so forth. And so one thing that I did in my classes, we had a Zoom background. In Zoom, they allow you to put an artificial background around you. We had a favorite Zoom background contest in class. So you could put flowers, you could put astronauts and so on and so forth. I think as teachers, we just need to be a little sensitive towards it
Right,
to
absolutely.
understand that, not everybody comes from the same place. And when
Absolutely.
you're coming to class, all of them are coming over there.
Right.
So it's a different ball game. Here you are entering their houses and they may or may not be comfortable with it. So as a teacher to be able to read that and to
Right.
be able to kind of, give a solution to them without making them feel bad about it.
Correct.
I think it's one of the things that we definitely need to keep an eye out for.
And what about, you also spoke about videos, like pre-planning videos and, choreographed videos that you send across. for very small children, do you think that's the right format, or for, you know, like children in preschool, you know, like 4 to 5 or under 5, what is the you know, ideal format to kind of go with?
Oh, so actually in class, as a teacher, I believe that memory is very important, and we do not do any practice videos in class. So once you've learned something in class, you go and practice on your own and you come back and do it again in the next class. But right now, given the situation, I think it works very well. It's working very well for me to record step-by-step videos. So even students who cannot attend the class or do not have a very good internet connection, they can practice it at their own pace, at their own time. And they also send me a homework video. So what would earlier be me checking them in class, now
Right.
they make a video of themselves throughout the week, or throughout the time the class is not there, and they send it back to me on WhatsApp. Because WhatsApp is very easily accessible for everybody, and everybody feels safer also sending a video over WhatsApp than sometimes like Zoom has some safety issues, etc.
Right.
So we keep the videos off. That's not a problem. The idea is to just make them very comfortable with everything, to fight the lags or internet bad connectivity that we might have. And two more things, that this online system is not only for survival as a business, but you should also look at it as one, the reach it is giving you. Again, like Gitanjali said, she has people from a lot of places who are tuning in. And secondly, there is no physical limit in terms of the classroom. So in a classroom, you can probably take an X number of students. You can do to a 10X when you're doing an online session. So we should definitely capitalize on these, while keeping in mind that our students come from different backgrounds, they are different ages, their attention span is different. And instead of treating it as a temporary solution, look at it as a long-term thing that you can sustain. That way, I think you will give it more thought.
Right. But tell me also, you know, what is it like? I want to understand, like there are thousands of videos, online videos on Zumba and dance. So what is it that you do differently to kind of differentiate yourself? I mean, what should prompt a parent to go to your dance class vis-a-vis, you know, just having them put something on YouTube?
So the first answer that comes to my mind is the fact that I know my kids.
Right.
And or when you go on YouTube, it is a video that is playing by itself, and you are supposed to follow. The video is making no, it's giving no consideration to you as a person. Are you able to do this step? Are you able to pick up? Maybe you cannot do a complicated step. Can we simplify it?
Right.
That is what is missing in a YouTube system. Because
absolutely.
Honestly speaking, even when we had physical classes, YouTube classes were still there, as if YouTube videos. But people still came to us for this particular reason, that you can customize it.
Right.
So even when I have 300 students learning from this, I can see that I taught a step and a lot of them are not able to pick it up, I can quickly change it and kind of say that, this is an easier version that you can do.
Okay.
And I can see their faces lighting up also when I say that this is an easier version, like that. So that interaction will only come from an online or a live class. Whether it is online or offline, it will not come from a pre-recorded class.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. You know, I mean, when you send your children to a class per se, which is an offline class, it was also essentially one to kind of have a one-to-one personal interaction, and for them to have a social connect and social interaction with other children, because that's equally important, especially in early childhood and even later on. It's very important part of their growth. So I think you kind of hit the
it is, I will agree, it is more stressful to take a class online than offline, to kind of squint at the screen and all of those things. But even though we've changed our format, even though we are charging more because we're putting in more effort into it, yet all my team members have been running online classes for 6 weeks now, on Zoom. And I think we're doing a pretty good job at it. So yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, Disha, over to you now. I wanted you to kind of speak about some of the things that you are seeing, the daycare partners that we have. What are some of the content changes they are making in their curriculum, and what has been the what are some of the challenges they're facing? What are some of the learnings that they've had in the past 1 month for those who've already kind of moved into the space?
So in the preschool industry, because everyone else has spoken about the challenges when it comes to younger children. So in the preschool industry, one of the biggest challenge for young children is their attention span. Again, I'm going to come back to the attention span. So we have the preschools and preschools have changed their format to make their videos and the learning methodology to be short. The way Gitanjali said that you need to have shorter videos and shorter storytelling sessions. The same way, you need to have shorter lesson plans also, which are uploaded for the children. Now, the parent, and because with preschool, parent engagement is also very important. They have to be present to do the activity with the child. We are supporting the preschools and preschools in uploading that data and creating lesson plans in a way that the parent can actually engage with the child as per their convenience.
Okay.
Yes, live sessions are very important part of interaction and seeing the child interacting with their friends. But that is something which, after a certain point, if done on a daily basis, can become difficult for parents because they also have their own schedule to manage.
Absolutely.
So, to keeping in mind needs of the children and the parents, ProEves is supporting giving a software solution called ProEves Edge, so that the parent can get access to worksheets and video plans, lessons, activities, everything that you're doing in a live session. All the same thing can be done, recorded and uploaded on the portal, so that the parent has the luxury to do it as per their schedule, which is very important. And one parent might be getting up at 5 in the morning and they want to do the activity at 7 or 8 a.m. and some parents get up at 10 but they want to do it at night. So we've given that opportunity for the parents to conduct the activities as per their time schedule. And we also have a lot of formats that in which you can provide the learning plan to the parent. You can either upload videos which are recorded by the teachers, like everyone has emphasized on visual aids. While recording the videos, you can use your visual aids, you can use your props to make it interactive so that the child might feel like I'm actually looking at my teacher in class. You can upload worksheets which the child can directly do on the iPad or the laptop if you don't have a printer, or you can always write it down. Parents have to make that additional effort today, so they could always just write it down, whatever's there in the worksheet. You also have the option of just providing YouTube links. Now, I'm sure everyone over here has certain channels that they approve of, and they think that the parents should follow these, show these videos to their children. So similarly, preschools can upload those videos, those links, those books onto the app as per the schedule you want them to follow. You have a schedule in your preschool that Monday we are going to do X activity, Tuesday we are going to do Y, Wednesday we are going to do A. So to follow that, you have to have that structure to be given to the parents, and that structure can be provided if it is done to some extent in pre-recorded sessions as well. Like Tarannum had been speaking about how she's recording the video.
Correct.
That also helps because parents have the option of going back and seeing it. They might want to see that 5 times. The child might have one story so much they want to keep seeing it again and again.
Right.
So to provide that, we have a portal where preschools can actually upload all of these things. Every teacher is a storyteller. Yes, I might not be as experienced as Gitanjali, but every teacher is a storyteller because they all do it every day in the preschool.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
every teacher can do all of it and upload it so the child feels like my teacher is doing it for me. Parents should feel that my teachers are doing this additional effort instead of just giving us videos and worksheets. They're also recording these sessions. So that helps them feel special. It improves their loyalty to the school also and makes them feel connected that, okay, we are struggling in this time, so our teachers are going above and beyond to provide this for us. So it's just, you need to provide the correct platform for parents it's important to do your live sessions also, but it is very, very important to provide pre-recorded and pre-planned sessions so parents can do things as per their convenience. It's possible that parents might do everything only on the weekend. That's
Right.
very possible.
Absolutely.
But you need to provide that facility to the parent. That is
Absolutely.
additional facility to the parent because they're struggling. I think everyone who has kids can vouch for the fact that it's not easy right now with the lockdown and no help whatsoever.
Okay, great. So, what I hear you say is that basically you need to have your worksheets, you need to have your pre-recorded sessions, you need to have some live sessions to really kind of, make it a good, engaging mix and make it easy for parents so that, they find it motivating to really get online and help their children continue and provide this, provide this learning and continue with this learning.
Exactly.
So, I would like to wrap up the session. If any of you, it will be great to kind of just hear some quick takeaways that you would like to share with the audience, and then we'll wrap up the session after that. So, Disha and Jagna, would you start in terms of what are some of the key takeaways?
Yes, so I agree with all of my fellow panelists who said that we need to look at the shorter session. We need to include music and movement. We need to include dance. We need to have more pictorial cues. So I think all these works really, really well with the preschoolers as such. Also upload few worksheets. Have the parents understand that they're equal partners in the development of the child. Do a simple activity chores in the house like segregating your clothes, bigger clothes and a smaller clothes, segregate vegetables. These are all the life skills that usually we don't, do that with the children. But considering lockdown is an opportunity for the parents to interact with the children, they can involve the children in small activities back at home. I just like to add one thing into it. So what we're doing at Kangaroo Kids is as a part of a phase 2, we also be going to conduct virtual field trips and virtual guest lectures that are going to be invited on the profile for our little kids. We also have something known as a Skippy Tech. That's our internal app. So this is based on the multiple intelligence, and it's based on similarly what Disha mentioned to keep on hands-on activities. So parent can sit with the child anytime that they want and do those activities at their free time. So we're going to include those as well as a part of our session. And thirdly, our curriculum team has designed a COVID-19 reflection journal. Now, basically, this is catering to the children for junior and senior KG.
Okay.
We have a reflection journal where they can, express their ideas and thought and how are they, dealing with the daily day-to-day activity. So in case any of our audience are interested, they can put a note for it and we'll arrange the journal link to be sent to them. Okay. So I again thank each and everyone. Thank you, Sukanya, for, welcoming me for this event today.
You're most welcome, Jagna. It's been a pleasure. Gitanjali, any last minute thoughts from you? You're on mute.
Yeah, I appreciate the idea of pre-planning your sessions and also keeping things in mind while being mindful while you're conducting your sessions. To understand the age-appropriate things as well while you're conducting your sessions. Yeah, I think all of them have covered most of the points, and I personally gained a lot of knowledge from each one of you right now. And Sukanya, I want to thank you. I think you've been a wonderful moderator, and it's been very charging. Like we're just being mindful and just the right things taken from each one here.
Great. I'm glad that, I hope the other participants also find it equally engaging and informative. We'll open it up for question answers in just 2 more minutes after we kind of hear the wrap-up thoughts from Taranum and Urvija.
Thank you, Sukanya. It has been a great session. I would like to wrap it up with 2-3 things. One, when you take a session, make sure your lighting is good enough. You have enough light in the room. This is something that as a teacher, you forget because this is not looking at a priority. But it is very essential for your kid to actually see you clearly out there. Plus, every time if you're going offline and online camera, it's better to always in every session, at the start of the session, do be on camera so that you can connect to those kids much easier. And it is obviously suggested not to be off camera all the time.
Okay.
So that is one more thing. And like Urvaja said, please engage them, call them out with names at the end of the session, showcasing what they have done and giving them a good job. That really boosts the kids up a lot. And a 10-minute beforehand is a brilliant idea, to come on board 10 minutes before, so that you can introduce the child what you're going to do today and settle them in.
Okay,
So
great.
essentially that. It truly has been a very educational session here. Really gathered a lot of new information from all the colleagues out there.
Super. Urvaja, over to you for last minute tips.
I will not repeat anything that most of the panelists have said. They've said amazing things and very direct hints as to this is what you can do and not do. So something even as simple as make sure you're muting and unmuting yourself on time. So one thing I want to say is keep attention spans in mind. Plan accordingly while you're asking for visual cues, like Tarannum said, ask them to show you a thumbs up. Similarly, look for visual cues as well. So if you can see their energy going down, take a quick break. If you see that there is a little monotony setting in, shift it, so on and so forth. Secondly, take breaks. Let them drink water, let them, kind of wander around, speak to each other a little if possible. Thirdly, advertise very well. So this is your time to expand your reach. This is your time to, overcome all physical barriers in terms of who can come or how many people can come for your class. So make use of this opportunity and advertise well. Use Facebook, use social media, use all of these things. With respect to parents, now this is concerning my classes particularly. I have seen young students being very, techno savvy. So I don't need parents to come in and sit. Sometimes I might feel having a parent with you might reduce the students' inhibition, add to inhibitions when they are dancing. So maybe if it's possible, if your children are able to pick up everything by themselves, reduce parents' involvement in the sense that they don't have to physically be there. Parents will also bless you because they will also have so many other things to cater to. And we also conduct a lot of short workshops, which are very, they are very targeted towards learning a particular choreography in a particular amount of time. And this is not only for students, for kids, but also for parents. Because while we're doing a lot for kids in terms of involving them, etc., I think parents also need to take a little break and kind of, just do a little jig and release that pent-up energy so they can definitely dance too.
Thank you so much, Urvaja. Disha, over to you for last minute, tips from you.
So again, like everyone has covered most of the important points, but one thing I would really like to emphasize on to all the preschools and teachers is to have patience. It will take time for parents and kids to settle into online classes for the long-term basis. Right now, it might look exciting for a few days. There might come a lapse in it when parents little bored or they want to go online, or the lull might come. So we need to be patient with the parents and children to become used to online lessons and to make it a way of life forward. Because like Urvaja has pointed out, that it can actually be really good for business because physically, geographically, you have extensive reach now. But the little patience to keep at it for letting the children settle into that proper routine of online classes, that is something we all need to do. Right. And we need to be powering through that as preschools. That's very important.
Right, absolutely. For me, my biggest takeaway from today's session has been hearing all of you, hearing all of you do things that you're passionate about, is that we need to find joy. We need to find our own, we need to find our own strengths. We need to find joy in the simple things that we do. So whether it is joy in the cooking that some people find joy in cooking, some people find joy in dancing, some people find joy in art and craft. And when you look, in your simple things, when you find joy and you share that with your class students, with your communities, it automatically lights them up, right? So it's, so the learning is not just about the course or the curriculum, what is prescribed in the textbooks. It's at this time, it's very important to kind of communicate, to connect, to empathize. And therefore my my take from this is that everybody really needs to find in their day-to-day life, they need to be, they need to find things that make them happy and that makes them joyful, and share that in your classes with the children, and automatically you will feel that children are more engaged, they want to listen to you, they want to communicate with you, they want to connect with you. With that, I will open it up for any question and answers. I will request people to either raise their hand so we can unmute them, or maybe put it in the chat. I think putting it in the chat may work better. So if you could put your questions in the chat, we will have the panelists take it up one by one. Okay, so we have one question from Divya. She's asking, how do we make parents see value in online classes? Jagna, would you like to take that?
What we need to do at this point of time is, we need to understand that the children require the structure in their life. As much as said, the scheduling, the structure is what is required for their life. So if, as a parent, I'm not really sure if they're able to do that, but once they know that, there's somebody else, they have friends to look at, they have teachers to look at, and there are different activities done throughout that session for 40 minutes. I think that is what we need to look at this point of time from the preschool or an activity center point of view.
Okay. We have Khushbu, who's written that she's from Patna and people here are hardly responding to online classes. So how to kind of motivate them and engage them and kind of, get them actually coming on the online platform. So, what are some of the key things that they should really advertise about to, kind of get more audience and parents interested in online classes? So, Disha, would you like to take that?
Yeah, I have a suggestion on that. And my suggestion is that whatever classes you are conducting, make sure that initially you're not charging for it to your existing parents. Because parents first need to actually see the merit in it. They want to see whether these classes are actually going to work for my child. If you are going to be like, okay, you need to pay the fees and then we'll start your online classes, they will not be interested. Parents are very skeptical. I think as educators, everyone at some point of time has experienced parents not appreciating teachers enough. So you need to show the parents how much effort you are doing for those online classes and let it be about the child's learning. Initially, give them some free period. Give them some, just let them attend a few online sessions, experience it, and then, let them decide that, yes, okay, I can actually see my child getting something out of it. So I don't mind continuing with this preschool. And then they will still be more willing to enroll and take admission and pay for it.
Okay. We will take up one last question. Which is basically to say that how do we make the activities more parent friendly? Quite a few of them have said that how do we make parents' involvement less in these activities? Disha, Jagna, either of you, what's your take on this?
As I mentioned to you, you can involve the child in the day-to-day activity. Can you put these clothes on the rack? Can you remove them? In case the child is a little elder, like a senior KG, he can help you in folding the small items. Again, can the child make a sandwich with the mama? Can the child help to make a lemonade? Where, the parent is anyways doing the job, the child is just helping the parent to do it. Not just, acha, ye kar lo, wo kar lo. Involve your child as you would involve, anybody else. Though they look very small, but if you give them, a onus or an authority or, ye kar lena hai bachcha, aapne hum saath mein karenge, I think that is something which works really well with them. Okay. So don't think it as a chore, but look at it as an involvement where you can involve them in your day-to-day functioning and, every activity that you do back at home.
Okay. And one last question, Jagna. Some teachers want to know how many sessions do you recommend to be done for children in preschool?
As I mentioned to you, if the child is between 2 to 4 years of old, you can have a daily session of around 30 to 40 minutes. Again, your aim should not be only academics. You need to add storytelling, you need to add art and craft, you need to add music and movement. That is what is going to be, helping the child to be stable, emotionally support. I mean, that's how we're going to give an emotional support to the child. Vice versa, when the child is around 4 to 5 years old, maybe a junior KG, senior KG level, at that point of time, you can introduce basic concept, basic letters. You can have, art activity like a blood painting, or, give them the paints or the colors that you have. And in fact, as Tarannu mentioned, we're encouraging whatever the material is back at home. So you can use haldi as a yellow color. You can use kumkum as a red color. You can have palak for making a green color. So all these stuff are given to the child, and maybe he can make a collage and show it to the class next time when they come. So based on the child's age, the activity can be done on a daily basis. However, you need to check the duration. So initially, even if you want the class to go on for 1 hour, you initially would start with 20 minutes and gradually build up the time and go for 1 hour. Because if you tell the child to sit immediately for 1 hour, the child won't be able to do that. So you need to have a session 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and gradually move to whatever desired time that you want the child to sit for your classes.
Okay, thank you so much, Jagna. In the interest of the time, we're going to wrap up. But for all of those who've not got a chance, reach out to Disha. Her email ID is disha@proeves.com. For any questions, contacts, panelist details, etc., please reach out to disha@proeves.com. Okay. Thank you once again, everybody, for joining in today, and a special thank you to the panelists. I think what we all need to remember is that teaching is a lot of hard work, and whether it is online or offline, I think as teachers, we need to kind of do our best to make sure that our children are learning and continuing with their, with their growth and with their learning path.
Yeah, Sukanya wanted to share something
Sure.
almost in sync with what you said. So yeah, it's very important to bring joy in your sessions and let your soul speak. Because
Absolutely.
the universe just charges up your workshops for yourself.
Absolutely.
And bring one surprise element, because with so much pre-planning and so much over-informed parenting, it's important that you bring one surprise to the class. Surprise, and then tong.
Okay, on that note, thank you so much, everybody.
Sorry, I have
It's been a pleasure to have all of you. Yes, Disha.
one very interesting question came that, how to make the parent involvement a little less, because sometimes they can actually disturb a class.
Right.
My suggestion is, like I was describing the multiple formats that we provide to centers for doing online classes. You have options of only doing worksheets for the children. You can just download the worksheet, the child can do the active format or the pre-recorded videos format will help them have lesser parent involvement, because then the child can see it and move ahead and continue doing things on their own. That is one of the benefits, because yes, when you have a live session going on, parents can actually create a little bit of a confusion and ask too many questions, which can delay your session also. So
Can I just add into what Disha is saying? So what we do is, how we have a rules of the class. So whenever we have a classroom, with the kids, we encourage and empower the children to make a classroom. So what we have done is, similarly for the online classes, we've set across few rules for the parents and made them aware how it's going to be beneficial for their own child. So if the parent keeps asking question all the time, they're not giving an opportunity for the child to talk. So we've told them, we would like the child to ask a question in whichever format he's asking. And how in a classroom setup, a teacher answers the query, trying to build a rapport, interacting, asking more questions to understand what the child wants to ask. And apparently it's worked quite well. So if you're setting up a basic rule and making the parents understand how, they not interrupting quite often is going to be beneficial to the child, I think that works somewhere or the other. It may not be 100%, but you will definitely see that it reduces the parent involvement, especially when it comes to, junior, senior, and nursery kids.
Okay.
In
Wow.
fact, sorry, I'm going to add more to it.
Sure.
Digna, I think you're right, bang on that. And in fact, we can have a parents, have a parent session later on for feedback. Videos definitely help on something like that. So, in fact, when you don't want too much child parent involvement, that is where the videos are very helpful that they can read and see later on.
Right.
So,
So I think the take really is that we need parents and we need educators and we need children to master technology.
that's so true.
All right, everybody, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure, and thank you for coming and sharing some great insights. Bye bye and all the best.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.